Teachers of Reddit, what was the worst thing you had to confiscate from a student? So this was less confiscated and more. This student ended up just leaving this in my room and we had to throw it away, but it was certainly weird and is among my favorite things. I have a student this year who has brought some interesting things in. He's in 7th grade and this is usually beyond the age students play, show and tell to begin with. Things included a Russian nesting doll, of household items, lunchboxes, crayon bags, a plastic egg and many things in between. 8 or 9 total, leading to a paper with Joe Biden written on it, and a jar of other people's hair. He was asking his teachers to add to it. This somehow beats both. Over the course of what feels like a week, this student had been collecting cherry tomatoes at lunch and saving them. Eventually, he had a handful of them. He named each one. He drew a face of each. He had created a family of tomatoes. He even began dressing them in tape-created safety seats. Only the children tomatoes though. He even had a French fry boat for a vehicle to carry his tomato family to each class. Eventually he left it in our class over weekend and the tomatoes went bad. We had to toss them. He asked us not to call TPS on him, Tomato Protective Services. I love this kid. I love this. My kids had a cantaloupe that they named Jeffrey and brought camping with us. I'm so glad it was just the one and not a whole cantaloupe family. Over the course of years. Bottle of vodka hidden in the girls' bathroom by 7th graders. How did you know where to look? Everyone who came back from the bathroom was drunk, so you're not as sneaky as you think. Vape, my mom gave it to me for allergies. So, I'll just give it back to her then. Wide eyes. No. Student banging the primers of 230-06 shells together in class. Grab, I just wanted to see if they would go off. I love stories like those first two where the kid just doesn't have the life experience needed to understand how obvious the lie is or how quickly we can figure out if it is a lie. Like a toddler swearing he didn't steal any chocolate while it's smeared all over his face. Like a toddler swearing he didn't steal any chocolate while it's smeared all over his face. That's my father's favorite story to tell about me. I must have been about 5. I woke up early on Easter and started devouring chocolate. My dad told me, no more chocolate, and then when he walked away I got into it again. I, of course, told him I hadn't been eating more chocolate, which was evidently false due to the chocolate all over my face and wrappers on the ground. So my dad takes the Easter basket and puts it on top of the fridge. What he didn't know until very recently was that after he left for work I grabbed a chair, climbed up on the counter, got the basket off the fridge and went to town more carefully and put it back before my mom woke up. Parents hate this one trick. Some kids were into petrol/gas sniffing but found it hard to transport and keep hidden, so they learned how to make napalm so they could carry it hidden in their bags. I had to lock down the whole school and get hazmat in to dispose of it. And how did they find out how to make it? They asked one of the science teachers and he told them. I got in trouble for looking up how to make napalm in HS freshman year. I actually got caught because a friend told me about the Anarchist Cook website. I went on it and checked the ingredients because ours wasn't potent enough/anticlimactic. Got caught by a substitute and was sent to the office where IT scoured who else went on that website. I didn't know what anarchist meant at the time, LOL. During my review, the chemistry teacher asked me what it said. I told him styrofoam and gasoline. Well, did it work? Chem T. Not really, was just jelly gasoline. That's because you need to double boil it to change the chemical composition more. But with the fumes and an open flame you're asking for trouble. The best way is to use a bathtub with the water heater up really high, this way there is no flame. Gotta have IT block this website at school, Chem T. I got a central detention and had him for chem the next year. He was screwing with you. The colloquial napalm is jellied gasoline. The technical napalm is just a gelling agent that is added to a fuel like gasoline to thicken it. The original was a soap composed of a mix of aluminum naphthenate and aluminum palmitate, hence the portmanteau, napalm. I'm not sure if napalm of any sort is even used much anymore. Not that incendiary weapons in general are commonly employed anymore. Takes notes. Thanks, chemistry teacher. It's not like it's any big secret. It's literally on Wikipedia. Knowing how to do something, having the ability to do it, and having the will to do it are all different things, and the foremost is pretty much impossible to prevent for most things. You gotta dissolve so much styrofoam in gas to make it jellied though. Honestly, just playing with gas is more fun. The only reason they jellied it in war was so that it stuck to things and was hard to get off. It does more than just making it sticky. It makes it so you can project it as a coherent stream, greatly extending its range when sprayed from a projector, like a traditional flamethrower. It makes it burn hotter and longer. And apparently it makes it so it doesn't vaporize nearly as quickly, which means it lasts long enough to flow properly. Jellied implies it's hardly fluid, but it's actually a thixotropic fluid, which gives it some interesting viscosity properties, say, into tunnels. It is, quite frankly, horrible stuff. Bro, if you had made a YouTube channel or podcast just talking about the stuff you know, I'd watch the shit out of that. You make me want to learn about chemistry again, and I thank you for that. While I appreciate the compliment, I think I do better in a more conversational format like here on Reddit, than what is for all intents and purposes lecturing. Glad I was able to be a bit of an inspiration, though. Sounds like you know more than me. I only tried making the styrofoam and gas type when I was a kid. We threw entire sheets of the Blue House styrofoam stuff into a little coffee jar and it just never really jellied up. Eventually we threw it at a dead tree and lit it on fire. No fire danger in that part of the country, it rained every other day. But yes, as a chemist it does make sense that a more viscous fluid will stay together longer in a stream and therefore work better for a flamethrower. Wasn't this why napalm olive became a thing back in the day? I remember other kids referencing this from the Anarchist Cookbook. The bathtub thing is actually in the Anarchist Cookbook though. I think there's a derivative of napalm and was refined/further weaponized by DARPA, where it was formed into a ball and once lit and tossed into a room/structure it was around the room on a passive self-propulsion system, bouncing everywhere, all the while rapidly increasing the temperature to over 1000 degrees Fahrenheit in less than a minute. Obviously size and volume of the room matters. Maximum effectiveness was around 2000 square feet. For reference, the reason why professional kitchens can push out amazing steaks and you cannot in your home kitchen is because commercial broilers can go beyond 1000 degrees and steaks are placed under said broiler for a handful of seconds after its initial cook/sear, so that when the plate hits your table, the steak is still sizzling, a la Ruth Chris Steakhouse. I believe that they are illegal in warfare to use against people, but still can be used against terrain, to clear. I made napalm in my bathtub when I was in high school. I didn't know the details of how to do it in the bathtub, so I just melted styrofoam with gasoline. It ended up damaging the fiberglass tub and my dad was baffled as to what happened. 20 years ago, my father, an ex-chemist, went off on a rant like this in a Walmart when they wouldn't let him buy 2 packs of generic Sudafed. Because they said he might make meth. He proceeded to explain, loudly rant, exactly how it was impossible to make meth with this specific brand and how you'd need X and Y components and how they were infringing on his freedom and such. We left after the pharmacist started pressing the security button. I also found out that weekend that my dad's friend did make meth, and other things, back in the 60s. He stopped when he blew himself up. The guy lived to 50 and had the skin pigment of Uncle Fester. Is that website still up? Asking for a friend. It's around. But trolls have edited certain versions so that every little iteration is a little different, and some of the recipes can be deadly. Spoiler alert. I think I have ye old version I got off a BBS back in the pre-internet days. Shush. That's how they get you. The key here is science teachers see this as a potential interest in science, I think. Pay attention in class and you can blow stuff up/find cool rocks/hack computers are good selling points to kids' IMO. Not necessarily the craziest thing to confiscate, but the effect that confiscating the item had on the student was pretty upsetting. For background, I am an elementary special education teacher for students with emotional disabilities and intense behaviors. These students have behaviors that range from yelling, throwing things, and leaving the classroom to students who have attempted suicide and students who have assaulted their peers or the school staff. I even had a student go for a cop's gun one time. The student in question was in first grade at the time and fairly low-key compared to some of the other kids I had. This student and I had a good relationship as I was one of the only male staff in the building. He lacked a reliable male figure in his life, and for the majority of his kindergarten year, I was the primary teacher working with him. One day my student had asked to use the restroom, and for most of my students, our staff will escort them to and from the restroom, so I went with him. Now it's been several years, so the details are fuzzy, but somehow it was brought to my attention that there was burnt toilet paper in the boys' restroom. I can't remember if my student or another student told me, but I want to say it was my own student. This sets off some alarms in my head, so I contact my admin team so they're aware. As we're going forward with our day, I notice that my student is fidgety and messing with something in their jacket pocket. So I ask them if I can check their pocket, and instead of saying yes, he pulls out a little Bic lighter and tells me that he found it and asks me to keep it a secret. Of course I can't just turn a blind eye, so I report it to my admin team and we sit down with the student to talk about fire safety. We explained how playing with lighters isn't safe and that he could hurt himself or others if he accidentally started a fire that got out of control. My student feels awful. He's apologizing and feeling remorseful. He admits to us that he had been messing around with lighters at home when his mom was sleeping. We contacted his mother to tell her what had happened and what he had told us, and her response was, "Unfortunate." She was furious with us. Told us there was no way that he had brought a lighter, and that it must have been planted by a peer. That we coerced a confession out of him and that she was pulling him out of school immediately. Within a year the family's house burned down, and my former student was severely burned in the fire. I work in the school system as well, and we have a class just like you described. My office, IT, is next to it and I have had to help on occasion. One thing that gets me about these kids is not that they struggle with these behavior issues, it's that they have shit parents that don't care or listen to the teacher about what can be done better. Damn, that is so sad. A gorilla mask, yes, dude put it on while my back was turned and facing the board. I laughed like hell, then took it for the day until his parents collected it. A crossbow, property of a 17-year-old student at the boarding school where I used to work. The same boy was also fond of bringing pheasants to school that he'd killed on his father's estate and plucking them in the shower block. Excuse me, what? Young Dwight. My mom has been a primary teacher for her whole life now, in the UK, and the worst incident she had to deal with was with a girl aged 10 who was having issues with a boy essentially bullying her. She told her dad, and her dad's solution was to give her a sawn-off shotgun to intimidate the boy. No one knew it was unloaded, but the hell it raised when a 10-year-old schoolgirl brings out a shotgun certainly put the boy off from ever coming near her again. I'm sorry, but the image of a little 10-year-old holding what is probably a 12-gauge sawed-off shotgun is hilarious to me. Probably was a quarter the size of her and would send her half a kilometer in the other direction if she tried to use it. Thank God it was unloaded though, that would have been a very, very traumatizing day for everyone involved. Not a teacher, but I'm half deaf and my music teacher took my hearing aid and refused to accept that it wasn't an earbud. Then he yelled at me for the rest of the class for not playing in tune, couldn't exactly tell how well I was playing since I could hear it. Not a teacher, but the student who got the item confiscated. It's nothing crazy or anything, but back in 8th grade we had an arms race for paper hornets. Paper hornets are pieces of paper folded as many times on itself as possible, and then compressed to a V shape. We'd use these in combination with elastics and shoot them at each other. Now, anybody can make a paper hornet, it's not hard. But it isn't easy to make a great one. I, however, made, and still can make, very very hard paper hornets. Basically a chunk of wood flying at you at Mach Jesus. Because of this, many people would ask me to make them paper hornets. They'd pay me in gum, gummy snacks, Dunkaroos, etc. The better the payment, the more time I'd invest in the project. So near the end of this war, getting caught shooting paper hornets would result in missing recess. It eventually escalated to suspension, but thankfully I dropped out of the race just before that. People starting adding staples to the ends to draw blood or increase hardness, so I dropped out. Anyways, my friend, fake name, Max, wanted an order of like 20. Gave me 6 packs of fruit gummies as payment and I proceeded to get to work. These were the hardest ones I've ever made. They were reinforced with paper clips so they wouldn't lose their shape and everything. Like I said before, he wasn't my only client, so as I was making them in my desk I caught the teacher's attention. He asked what I was doing and I said nothing. He came over and I shoved the current hornet I was working on in my desk. He asks again and I say nothing and raise my hands. To which he grabs the lip of my desk and lifts it, to reveal around 150 different paper hornets. Thick, thin, reinforced, regular, etc. There was no escaping it now. He sent me to the office and confiscated all of them. The arms race was over. Anyone caught with a paper hornet would be suspended, and anyone seen with an elastic band had their desk searched. All because of these little pieces of paper. Not gonna lie, I miss that. Consider subscribing this video if you enjoyed and wish to see more. Thanks for watching.